South Korea, modern, vibrant, steeped in history and technology. Yet beneath neon lights lie shadows that refuse to vanish. People vanish. Children vanish. Newlyweds vanish. Students vanish. All leaving behind unanswered questions. Tonight, we follow 5 real unsolved mysteries, 5 disappearances, 5 tragedies, no solutions, only silence. Let us begin with 5 boys chasing salamanders. A simple hike turned into a national nightmare. March 26, 1991, Daegu, South Korea. It was a public holiday. That morning, 5 young friends left their homes to search for salamander eggs on a nearby hill. Their names were Kim Jong-sik, Kim Young-gyu, Park Chan-in, Woo Cheol-won, and Jo Ho-yeon, all between 9 and 13 years old. They carried plastic buckets, homemade nets, and childlike excitement. But they never returned. What followed would become one of the most haunting and controversial unsolved cases in South Korean history. The boys left around 9:30 a.m., heading toward Mount Warryong, a forested hill just 1 kilometer from their homes. They were best friends. Some were neighbors, some classmates. The trip was supposed to last a couple of hours. But by nightfall, when none of the boys came back, their families began to panic. That night, families organized search parties. In the following days, the case made national headlines. Over 300,000 people, including police, military, and volunteers, scoured the forests, rivers, caves, and construction sites. Helicopters were dispatched, flyers printed, even shamans and psychics were consulted. The boys were now known as the Frog Boys, named after the salamanders they went searching for. For more than a decade, the Frog Boys became a national tragedy. Their photos appeared on milk cartons, newspapers, and election banners. Theories came and went: abduction, runaway, even North Korean agents. But nothing surfaced. No bodies, no clothes, no clues, until 2002. On September 26, 2002, exactly 11 years and 6 months later, a man collecting acorns on Mount Warryong stumbled upon human bones and 5 pairs of children's shoes. The remains were quickly identified as the missing boys. Shockingly, they had been found less than 2 kilometers from their homes. Authorities first claimed the boys froze to death, but forensic reports painted a different story. One skull had a bullet hole. 2 others showed signs of blunt force trauma, and spent bullet casings were found nearby. The boys hadn't died by accident. They had been murdered. Rumors spread that the boys had entered a military firing zone. Some believed they were killed by accident, and the scene was covered up. Others blamed a hunter, a kidnapper, or a deranged man. The site had been searched multiple times back in 1991. So why were they only discovered in 2002? No suspect was ever arrested. In 2006, the statute of limitations expired. Even if the killer were found, they could no longer be charged. In 2015, the law changed, but too late for the Frog Boys. Their case remains unsolved. Their parents, some still alive, never got answers. Even after the Frog Boys' tragedy, the shadows never left. Because in another city, another child would vanish. Not in the mountains, but in the middle of the city, right in front of everyone. And just like that, nothing. October 4th, 2004. Busan, South Korea. 9-year-old Choi Hyun-mi asks her mother for a few coins to buy a snack. She walks down the street to a nearby convenience store. A trip that should have taken 5 minutes. She never came back. At 4:25 p.m., CCTV shows her entering the store. She buys a small carton of milk and a bag of shrimp crackers. The cashier remembers her clearly. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But there's no footage of her walking out. No one saw her on the street afterward. She simply vanished. Her mother waited. 5 minutes. 10. 30. Panic. She ran to the store, but Hyun-mi was gone. Within hours, police launched a full-scale search. Dozens of officers, sniffer dogs, volunteers combed the streets, alleys, and rooftops. But no trace of the girl, not even her snack bag. Detectives questioned every store in the neighborhood. They reviewed hours of footage. They found a man in black walking toward the same alley, but his face was hidden under a cap. No ID, no motive, no leads. 3 days later, the family received a call. A man's voice, distorted. "Don't look for her," it said. Then silence. The number couldn't be traced. It never called again. Choi Hyun-mi was never found. No body, no witness. Just a girl who stepped out to buy a snack and was swallowed by the city. Some say it was a crime of opportunity. Others whisper of someone watching, waiting. But the truth? Still missing. A little girl disappears. No struggle, no trace, no justice. But she wasn't the first. And she wouldn't be the last. Because long before Hyun-mi ever walked this earth, in the countryside of Korea, something far more sinister had already begun. Something that would haunt the nation for decades and redefine fear itself. The nightmare began on September 15th, 1986. A 71-year-old woman was found strangled with her own stockings near a rice field in Hwaseong. At first, police believed it was an isolated case, but then another body, and another, and another. Each victim, female. Each found in the countryside, near fields or remote roads, all killed in the same horrifying way. Strangled, sometimes with their own clothing. Some showed signs of sexual assault. Others had objects inserted post-mortem. Panic spread. Parents locked their daughters indoors. Villagers carried whistles and knives. Women only walked in groups and never wore red, which the killer reportedly targeted. The killer was methodical. He always struck at night, usually between 8 p.m. and midnight, always during rain. He left no fingerprints, no hair, no fibers. 10 women were murdered between 1986 and 1991. The youngest victim, 13 years old. The oldest, 71. The gap between victims varied from weeks to months. There was no clear pattern in age or appearance. Just one thing remained consistent. The killer always vanished, without a trace. Korean police launched the largest manhunt in history. Over 2 million officers were mobilized. Tens of thousands were questioned. Hundreds of suspects arrested, only to be released. Rumors spread. Panic grew. Women refused to go out alone at night. And the rain became terrifying. In 1989, police arrested a young man named Yoon Sung-yo for one of the murders. He confessed, but later said he was tortured into it. Yoon was mentally disabled and legally blind. Still, he was sentenced to life in prison. But the killings didn't stop. In 2019, a breakthrough. A new DNA match linked the crimes to a man already in prison, Lee Chun-jae. Lee had raped and murdered his own sister-in-law in 1994. He later confessed to all 10 Hwaseong murders and several others. Cold, calm, smiling. But it was too late. The statute of limitations had expired. Why did it take 30 years to find him? Why was an innocent man imprisoned? Why did Lee stop killing? Some say he didn't. That other cases across Korea may also be his work. But he'll never be punished for the Hwaseong murders. Only one man paid the price. And it wasn't the killer. He killed. He vanished. And for 30 years he watched the country chase shadows. This is not a movie. This is South Korea's darkest reality. Next, another mystery. A woman vanishes without a trace. Only a phone, a puddle of blood, and silence. June 5th, 2003, Busan, South Korea. 17-year-old Kim Hyun-jung finishes her part-time job and heads home. The next morning, she gets dressed for school and disappears. She's never seen again. That morning, June 6, 2003, was just like any other. Hyun-jung woke up at 6:30 a.m., ate breakfast, packed her bag, and left home around 7:20. She waved goodbye to her mother at the front door. She wore her school uniform, a white blouse, dark skirt, white socks, and black sneakers. She had a black backpack and a pale pink phone dangling from a keychain. She was supposed to meet her friend at the bus stop, but the friend never saw her. One neighbor claimed they saw her walk past the local mart, just 5 minutes from home. Another said they thought they saw her talking to someone in a white car. But no one remembers clearly. No one saw her again. By evening, her parents panic. They call her friends, her school, the police. Search teams comb the neighborhood. Posters go up. Thousands share her photo. 3 days later, her school bag is found, abandoned behind a factory. Inside, textbooks, stationery, and her phone, dead. CCTV footage from the area? Too blurry, too short. One witness recalls seeing a white van parked nearby that morning. Another says they heard a scream, quick and muffled, but no license plate, no tire tracks, no proof. Police widen the search. But Hyun-jung has vanished, like smoke. Rumors spread quickly. A kidnapping, human trafficking, a jealous stalker. Police interview dozens of people, but without evidence, theories are just shadows. Critics say the initial investigation was sloppy. CCTV wasn't collected in time. Witness reports were ignored. Precious hours. Wasted. 20 years have passed. No suspects, no body, no closure. Every year, her parents light a candle. Still hoping, still waiting. What happened to Kim Hyun-jung that morning? And why has no one spoken the truth? Some vanish into the night, never to return. Others disappear behind locked doors. From a frozen river to a sealed dorm room. Our next story takes us deeper into the impossible. April 5th, 2003. Daegu City, South Korea. At the university's main girls' dormitory, room 310, a second-year literature student never came out. She was Lee Eun-ha, 20 years old. She walked into her dorm and was never seen again. Eun-ha was known for being quiet and studious. She rarely joined group outings. She didn't drink, didn't date, and spent most evenings at her desk, reading classic literature. April 5th was a Saturday. At 2 p.m., she returned a stack of books at the university library. A librarian remembered her borrowing a poetry anthology and smiling politely. At 6:45 p.m., she stopped at a convenience store just outside campus. CCTV showed her buying a cup of instant noodles, a chocolate bar, and a bottle of vitamin water. She walked back to the dorm under light rain, hoodie up, earbuds in. A hallmate saw her enter, remove her shoes, and nod quietly. That was the last person to ever see her. No one heard screams, no banging, no footsteps, not even her roommate, who was at the study hall all evening. When Eun-ha didn't show up for her part-time shift that evening, her co-worker called. No answer. By Sunday noon, her parents were contacted. They rushed from Busan to Daegu within hours. Campus staff searched the room again. Her bag was untouched. Laptop still charging. Notebook open to a poem she had been copying by hand, but no signs of struggle. No blood. No broken lock. Security checked hallway CCTV. It clearly showed her entering the dorm at 7:14 p.m. No footage showed her leaving. Not by the hallway. Not through the emergency stairs, not via the fire exit. Search dogs were brought in. They sniffed through all 12 floors of the building. They reacted faintly near the elevator shaft, but nothing was found. Drainage systems, rooftops, crawl spaces, nothing. Her roommate was interrogated but had a solid alibi. There was no motive, no fight, no jealousy. Posters were hung. Radio stations broadcast her disappearance. Tips flooded in. Someone saw her at a bus terminal. Someone said she was crying at a park. All dead ends. The police launched a formal investigation. Over 30 officers were assigned to the case. They questioned dorm staff, neighbors, professors, and over 70 students living in the building. No one heard anything. No one saw anything. Not even a scream. Not a single person claimed to have seen her leave. Room 310 was scanned for fingerprints. Only hers and her roommates were found. No forced entry, no strange hair, no clothing fibers, no sign of a third person. Some detectives suspected suicide, but there was no note, no history of depression. And the window was locked from the inside. They reviewed digital records, no credit card activity, no cell phone usage after 7:15 p.m., not even a login on her university portal. Weeks passed, then months. Nothing. The case quietly disappeared from the news. No memorials, no suspect, no body, just a locked room, and silence. Weeks later, some students said they'd noticed the hallway lights flickering that night, only near room 310. A janitor claimed the elevator stopped working at exactly 7:18 p.m., just minutes after Yunha entered. And then there were rumors. A girl in white crying near the stairwell at 3 a.m., footsteps echoing from an empty room. But no one could explain how someone could vanish from a locked room. So many mysteries, so many questions left unanswered. But the truth is still out there, waiting to be found. If these stories made you think, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. We'll be back with more.